This is my 4-4-6 mix, and it's basically the starting point and the basis of a lot of the routines on this project. What it allows you to do is get to any colour on the cube that the spectator names really quickly, so that the cube looks mixed and just that one colour is solved. But from here, you can get back to a solved cube really, really quickly. And I thought there's got to be a trick in this very concept. And I came up with the principle whilst playing around with F2L algorithms a few years ago. And the trouble was I didn't know how to perform it, because if you were watching it, you'd see exactly what was going on. And then I saw Takami's perform his 1-1-6 routine. I liked the idea of him doing the secret work underneath a cloth. Now, I didn't want to use a cloth and I didn't want to use the bag, because I think the bag's been way overused. I wanted this to be a bit more impromptu without anything else other than the cube. So what I would do is get spectators to hold their hands over the cube as I was doing the secret work, as if I was doing it blind. So I was saying, if you cover it so that I can't even see the cube. And it was okay, but I thought there's got to be something better. Then I saw Henry Harrius posted a video by Evgeny Karalin, I hope I pronounced that correctly, doing this routine where he would get to one spectator's colour, get to another spectator's colour, and then get to the solved cube, and he would do all the secret work behind his back. And I thought, that's genius, that's the way you do it. And I wrote to Evgeny and we talked about different methods. He didn't tell me his method and I didn't tell him mine, but we realised that they were similar but different. And I asked him at the time, I said, are you ever going to release this? And he said, yeah, definitely going to release this soon. Now this was 2 years ago, and I've been really chuffed that I've had this routine that I've kind of known about that's impromptu. I've been dying to know Evgeny's actual method. So I'm really looking forward to the day where he actually does release it. Now, I had no intentions of releasing this effect, because me having a slightly different method doesn't bring anything new to the actual concept itself. However, I sent Kev a video about a year ago of me doing this routine. He loved it, and we started coming up with all these ideas. There were so many ideas, in fact, that this is how this project has come about. So the idea was not to copy Evgeny's principle, but to take it further, to really build on the concept that he'd sort of come up with, and the concept of the 4-4-6 mix. So let's have a look how to do the 4-4-6 mix a little bit closer, and I'll tell you the actual principle behind what you're actually doing. Starting with the yellow on top and the blue in front, the spectator has chosen the colour white, which goes on the bottom. The basic concept is that you take these two pieces on the front right and exchange them for the two pieces on the back left. These two pieces with the two pieces on the opposite corner over here. Which, once you perform the algorithm, looks like this, with the green and orange pieces now in front, and the blue and red are now at the back. Starting with the yellow on top and blue in front, your right hand starts with an R move, followed by a U move, then R prime, followed by a U prime, which, as you can see, has taken the two pieces out and placed them on top. Next, to get the opposite two pieces out, you simply do an L move, which puts the opposite two pieces on top of the cube. To swap these two pieces over, simply perform a U2. Next, to slot the red and blue back in, simply perform an L prime. And as you can see, the white side is almost restored, apart from the orange and green pieces we need to slot in here. This is done with an R prime, F, R, F prime. Then you need to do a U prime, which will allow you to do the same algorithm again to get back to your solved state. Although the cube now looks kind of mixed, you still have these big blocks of orange and blue and red and green. So, by misaligning the top two layers by 1, which is a small U prime move, note the lightning on the right hand side on top as a reference point, but now the whole cube looks completely mixed aside from the white on the bottom. To get back to a solved cube, look for the lightning bolt top right as your reference point. Perform a small U. This aligns the big blocks and puts the lightning on the bottom. Now all you need to do is perform the algorithm again from the start. R, U, R prime, U prime, which brings the two pieces to the top. An L brings the opposite pieces back up, U2 to swap the pieces, then L prime will put two of the pieces back in. And this corrects most of the white on the bottom. Finally, to put the last two pieces back in, perform an R prime, F, R, F prime, and a U prime will set the cube back to its solved state. So that was the algorithm broken down, and hopefully you now also understand what you're actually doing when you're doing these moves. Now I'm going to give you a technique that speed cubers use with long algorithms to help them learn them really quickly. And that's just a case of breaking these long moves down into lots of short moves. This will not only help you learn it quickly, it will also help with your muscle memory as far as your hand movements go. So check it out, I think you'll find this useful. With blue in front and yellow on top, your first four moves are R, U, R prime, U prime. The next four moves are L, U, 2, L prime, which corrects most of the white. Now to slot these two pieces into the front corner, R prime, F, R, F prime. And an extra U prime move, which puts the lightning on the bottom. Finally, perform a little U prime to make the cube look mixed, apart from the white on the bottom. To get back to the solved state, reverse the last move by doing a little U, then the entire algorithm starts again with R, U, R prime, U prime, L, U2, L prime, R prime, F, R, F prime, and finish off with a U prime. Again, but to make this faster, we'll do it as numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then the misalignment move is 6. To get back to the solved state, undo move 6 and then start again at the beginning. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. a good way of getting this algorithm faster is to perform it right up until just before the alignment move, and then just perform the algorithm again. Keep repeating this over and over. You should aim to get this algorithm as fast as you can, and to the point where you no longer need to count, so that you are doing it without thinking about it. If you solve the cube using F2L, then these moves should be quite familiar to you anyway. If you don't, then I'm just going to run over a few things which might help you and give you a better understanding of cubing in general, and might help you to take things further with this, which I highly recommend. The first move you do, the RU, R prime, U prime, which puts these two pieces from here on top of the cube there, that is known as the sexy move, and that is the most common move in cubing. Hands down, once you start getting into solving the cube in different ways, that is one of the most common moves you'll come across, and it's a really useful move to practice over and over again, because it actually, if you do it 6 times, it rotates itself back to the start. You can do it on the right hand side, you can do it on the left hand side, you can even do it from the back. And there you go. Oh, no, too far. So it's a really useful move to learn and practice quickly, and gets your muscle memory for your hands really quick. Then the second move is the swap over move. There's no term for that, but to get this move back into the corner in front, the opposite corner, to get that in, you don't use a sexy move or a backward sexy move, you actually use a move called the sledgehammer, which is another way of getting these two pieces into this slot. And I think the reason it's called a sledgehammer is because it sort of comes down and then gives it and then swings like that. And it's another really, really cool move, and another one you'll find a lot in cubing. So once you've got to that stage where you've swapped the two pieces over, you do the extra move. And this is what I never used to do. I used to then just misalign the cube and then go backwards. So when I taught it to Kev, he learnt it wrong, and he did an extra move. So once he'd switched the two pieces over, he just did an extra U prime move. And that U prime move changes everything. It means that you don't have to do this algorithm backwards. You can actually just do the same algorithm again, and it takes you back into the same position. And this is where the lightning is lying down the bottom, because the way I used to finish was with the lightning on my left hand side, and but with it lying down on the bottom, you can just do the same algorithm back, the sexy move plus the sledgehammer, and then as long as you end up like this, and as long as you do that extra U prime move, that puts you back into that solved cube. So that was an accident that was really, really exciting. I think Kev's an absolute genius for discovering this, even though it was accidental. It was one of those boom revelation moments that we were just elated once we found that, proper geeking out. So yes, that's why you only ever have to learn one algorithm, and it's thanks to Kev's mistake. So I think this is just such a useful algorithm, and actually Kev's looked into different algorithms that get to this move, and in terms of there's this computer program that actually allows you to work out the moves to this point, and the moves are longer. So we worked out that we were actually cleverer than a computer. So take that. So anyway, hopefully that's given you a bit more knowledge on cubing and how these moves relate to each other in cubing terms. So on with the next part. So you can do your 4-4-6 mix really quickly and without thinking about it. How do you start performing the routine, and how do you get to the individual colours? Well, here's what I do. Of course, you know that to start with, the colour that the spectator names has to be on the bottom of the cube underneath, so this side here. So let's say the spectator names red, I get red to the bottom, do the mix, and now red is the only solved side. But how do you get to the next spectator's colour? Well, here's my colour code. I start by looking on top, and whatever colour the lightning is, so in this case orange, if the spectator names orange, I know that once I've done the 4-4-6 mix back to my solved state, I know that I've got to turn the cube upside down, and then I do the 4-4-6 mix again, and then orange will be the solved side. If the spectator names any other colour, I look around the cube, and what I'm looking for is this bottom row, this one here, and I'm looking at the double blocks of colours. So in this case I've got white to my right, in front is blue, over here is yellow, and in front of me over here is green. And that determines where the next colour is going to end up. So let's say in this case the spectator's named yellow, for instance. So yellow's on my left hand side, yellow is the block over here to my left, so that once I do the 4-4-6 mix, yellow is going to be over here, so I turn yellow to the bottom, do the 4-4-6 mix, and then yellow is the only solved colour. So it's as easy as that. So let's say the spectator name's white. So I look on top and I see my lightning is white. So I know that, again, I do the 4-4-6 mix, and white is on top, turn that underneath, do the 4-4-6 mix, and white is my only solved colour. I'll do one more. Let's say the spectator name's blue, which is the colour in front of me. It's the colour that I can't see. So I tend to, you could look around and go, right, let me just study the colours for a sec. But if you don't want to, if you want to make it look less obvious like you're looking for something, you just know, or by quickly looking around the cube like this as you're talking, that blue is the only colour that you can't see. So I've got green in front, orange on this side, red on this side, and yellow on top. So blue is the only colour I can't see. So it's going to be, so the blue is going to end up over here. So as you'll notice, when I finish, blue's over here, so I turn blue to the bottom, do the 4-4-6 mix, and blue is my only solved colour. So that's how you get to the individual colours. Now I'm going to show you how you can start to do this behind your back. So your final challenge is being able to do everything you've just learnt behind your back. And if you've got this far, this part really isn't that hard. In fact, I often tell my spectators that this is really hard because I'm doing it behind my back and my hands are in a different position. And that's actually a total lie, because your hands are actually in exactly the same position, just behind your back. So let me just try and get to the first colour, and just like that, the entire cube is mixed and we've got white. The hard part is getting to the second spectator's colour, because you're doing twice as many moves. And the way I do this, I would say, let's say the spectator's chosen blue in this case. I'll put the cube behind my back, and I'll put it behind my back with my right hand as I go behind. And it's obviously useful to be able to talk whilst you're doing this, because it helps to misdirect, and for me it keeps the flow going quite well. When I produce the cube, I do it from the left hand side, and I come out and just show the mixed cube, because in your audience's mind all they see is a mixed cube at this point. So when you then reveal this, it's a proper boom moment, it's a proper revelation. So that's the way you do it. So I come out and go, look, the entire cube is mixed apart from blue. And that's how I suggest you do it. Now, of course, when you put it behind your back, you don't have to talk. I did say that just now, but I prefer to do that nowadays. But when I started, I would ask for silence. I would say, let me see if I can do this in under 20 seconds to get to your colour. And I'll then put it behind my back, and I would just do that in silence by looking up in the air. And that works as well. Maybe that even strengthens the routine, because people can see how hard it is, and because you're emphasizing how hard it is, they'll feel it's more impossible. So the final thing I should mention is that obviously the way I did this just now is I started from a solved cube, And if you start from a solved cube, I would suggest you ask a spectator to name any colour or to think of any colour, put the cube behind your back, and then start to mix it to that first named colour. But don't ask for the colour until you've put the cube behind your back, because I think if you hold it out like this and then the spectator names their colour, I think some of the impact is lost. However, I don't normally do it from a solved cube. I would normally do this from a mixed cube, which for me seems a little bit more impossible and kind of makes more sense. In fact, both Kev and I do exactly that, but we do it slightly differently. Kev, for instance, he starts off with a mixed cube, and you can put it in your 2112 stack or the cube card stack. Put it up behind your back and start to unmix it as you just sort of say, and you just name blue, and then you unmix it behind your back and then go into it. Now Kev puts the cube behind his back and then asks for the colour, whereas I do it the other way around. I'll have the cube mixed or apparently mixed and then say name your first colour, and they'll say blue, and then you look around. I tend to look around the cube, say right, blue. I'm going to try and get to blue behind my back, and as I say that, I'm unmixing the cube halfway. So I've done 2112 once. I can then turn around and say, look, there is only one cube behind my back, and show them this side, because this is the most mixed side of the 2112 mix, and then do the final 2112 behind my back, and then start to go to whatever colour they've asked for. And this is all about knowing your colours, so that's the important thing. And I talk about knowing your colours a lot more in the free section of our website, which is the level up part, so check that out. And that's really all I can tell you about the 446 mix. So I hope this has all made sense. If you have any questions, obviously write to us on our website, but I think once you start to play with this, you'll realise how versatile it is, but how strong an effect this is, because I think it's the ultimate impromptu cube effect, because you can ask a spectator for a colour, you can get to that colour, and then you have that solb kicker at the end. So yeah, I hope you enjoy it. So here's a bonus challenge for you, and this is being able to do the 446 mix behind your back with one hand. And here's Kev to show you how to do that.
One thing I think is really nice is if you're going to perform 446 and you've asked for a colour and you put the cube behind your back, you can do this one-handed. So let's say, for example, that white has been chosen or named. So this is what it's going to look like. And that's going to get me to my 446 stack with white on the bottom. So let's have a look at how to do that step by step. So let's just imagine I've got into my cube card stack and I've just offset the top two layers. So the cube's going to go behind my back. I'm going to get back into my cube card stack. I'm going to solve the cube. I'm then in my boy orientation, so blue, orange, yellow. So when the audience member names a colour, obviously one-handed, I can then rotate to that colour. So let's say they say white. So behind my back, one-handed, I'm going to make sure white's on the bottom. I can then go into my one-handed 446. So what I actually do is rotate the cube slightly to this angle, because if I keep it straight like this, it's going to be difficult for my finger to get underneath. So I'm going to rotate it slightly so that it's easy to move this layer. So 1, and then I rotate a little bit, 2, rotate a little bit, 3, and 4. So that's the first 4 moves, and then my next 4 moves, I'm going to rotate the cube a little bit again to go 1, 2, 3, and then it's going to be my ring finger this time, do that 4th move. And then this is the kind of trickier bit, I guess, because this row is in the way of my thumb. So I'm going to use my index finger to push down and go 1, and then re-grip here, and my thumb on the bottom, 2, re-grip again and rotate, 3, re-grip again, 4, and then the last 2 moves I'm going to be using my index finger and I'm going to be pushing away like this to do 5, and then the ring finger again to do 6, and that's going to get me into the 4-4-6 stack. Now this really is just going to be about practice, and I guess you'll find your own way of doing this. So when I wanted to do it, I kind of just found out myself how I would need to rotate the cube so that I had space to be able to do each of the moves. Just like that. So as I said, it's a little bit knacky, but definitely possible. And as you see, it doesn't actually take that long to do. So if you did want to add that extra element into your routine where you're going to do it behind your back, and then you can either obviously bring it out and display your solve to that colour, or one-handed you can go into the stealth solve or the DT solve, then I mean that's a possibility as well. Now when I do 4-4-6 behind my back, the easiest way that I've found to remember it so I don't make mistakes is that I count 4-4-6. So I do 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, like that to get me into my 4-4-6 stack. So whatever method is going to help you. Now the one thing that I will point out is I think that the hardest part is the first 4 moves. It's just remembering that with one hand you are going to go up and then to the left and then down and then to the right. I've just found that those 4 moves seem to be the trickier to remember, and then the next moves just seem to be easier for me to remember what I'm doing. In this section of the tutorial, I'm going to teach you step by step the cube cards stack as taught on my release cube cards. Now, I use this all of the time, and in fact, there's other products on the market that require a stack, and I'll use this stack with those because I think it's just really simple to do and really easy to remember. So this is what the stack looks like, and I hope you'll agree that the cube looks really nice and mixed. But in fact, I'm only 8 moves away from getting back to my solved cube. And that is made up of using the 2-1-1-2 move twice. So 2-1-1-2, I'm now 4 moves away, and I can do that again back to my solved cube. Now, I can't take credit for this method. This is the work of the Japanese magician Takami's Usui, and he released a DVD called The Cube where he detailed a number of different one-handed techniques in order to do just that. And I definitely recommend having a look at that because he's got some other great ideas and great ways to solve the cube on that project as well. If you stick his name into Google, you'll also find plenty of other releases that he's put out, as well as a couple of penguin lectures which have got hours worth of content, and he just crams in so many ideas and tips to do with the cube. I definitely think that's essential watching. Now, this mix really underpins a lot of the stuff that is on this project along with the 4-4-6 mix. So I definitely recommend you spend the time to learn this properly. Now, you might be thinking at this point, well, I've learned a different variation of this mix. And that's fine. You can use that in this project. The teachings, and when I go through step by step, are going to be using the 2-1-1-2 mix. But that doesn't mean you can't adapt what you do already to the stuff that's on the project. Now, in my opinion, I think even if you have learned something else, it's worth spending the time and learning the 2-1-1-2 mix, which isn't going to take you very long at all, because I just think it's the easiest and most effective version out there. So let's go on and we'll have a look at how to perform this step by step. Okay, so this is the cube cards stack, and I'm sure you'll agree this looks really nice and mixed. But in fact, the cube is only 8 moves away from being solved, and that 8 moves consist of using Takamiz's 2-1-1-2 move repeated twice. So if I do 2-1-1-2, 2-1-1-2, I'm going to get back to my solved cube. Now, what's really nice about this is it's exactly the same moves that get you into the mix as get you out of the mix. And you'll notice that I can either do this with 2 hands, or I could do this one-handed as well, which makes this really versatile. So let's have a look at each of those steps in detail. Okay, so with the white facing and the red on top, my thumb is going to be placed just in between these 2 cubelets here, and my middle finger is going to be placed on the back of this bar. Now, it's worth pointing out at this stage that this bar never actually gets mixed the entire time. So if I put my fingers like this, and I'm just going to do my cube card stack and rotate here, and you'll see this bar is still in place. It's not been mixed. So let's just get back to my starting position. So the first move is going to be a small U move. It's a 2-layer move. So with my thumb in between these 2 cubelets and my middle finger on this back bottom right cubelet, I'm just going to use my index finger to perform a small U move. Now, it's called a small U because a normal U would just be 1 layer, but a small U is 2 layers like that. So I would suggest practicing holding the cube in this position and then just performing that move over and over again until you're confident that you can keep the cube still and move the layers around. Once you've got that down, we'll move on to the next stage. So the second move is going to be an L prime move. So this is the left hand layer and it's going to be going anti-clockwise, which is why it's called an L prime. So it's going to be that. Now, what I suggest is to practice this is holding the cube in the same position. This time you're going to be using your ring finger and it's going to be connecting on the back of the left hand layer, and it's just going to be pushing forward to rotate that layer up like that. So now you've got those 2 moves. The way that you can start practicing this is to do your 2 layers 4 times and then your left hand layer 4 times to get back to the solved cube. And you can just keep doing this until you've got those 2 moves nice and smooth. So the third move is going to be an easy one for you. Now you've done the small U move, because this time we're just going to be performing a U, which is just the upper layer on top that's going to be going round clockwise. Now, one thing I will mention is when you come to perform the 1 move, so let's just do the 2-1 that we've already learned. My thumb at this point is going to release pressure from here and it's going to pivot here a little bit, and the pad is just going to move over into this position. So when I use my index finger to perform the one layer you move, it doesn't accidentally move those 2 layers. So let's just reverse back. So the way that I practice this is, as before, do those 2 layers, and then you're going to move your thumb to here to do the 1 layer. So just to go through that again, 2, 2, 2, 2, 1, 1, 1, 1, and then you're just going to regrip and do 1, 1, 1, 1. If you've got that, you're then onto the 4th and final stage. Okay, so the 4th move is going to be a small L prime. So this time we're going to be moving those 2 layers on the left hand side anti-clockwise like that. And you'll see I'm using my ring finger again to move those 2 layers. So it's worth starting just by practicing doing that move first, but just note that my thumb has now moved all the way over onto this layer to give clearance for those 2 layers to move. So let's have a go at doing all those 4 moves together without actually mixing the cube. So 2, 2, 2, 2, 1, 1, 1, 1. My thumb regrips, 1, 1, 1, 1. My thumb is going to move again slightly to do 2, 2, 2, 2. So that is a really good way to practice without actually mixing the cube up. When you're confident with all of those, you can then string them all together and practice doing the 4 moves. That's then going to get you into cube cards, and I'm going to do those again to undo. So this bar that I mentioned earlier that doesn't move, this is going to be where you're going to rotate and pivot the cube. So let's just get back into my cube cards mix. Now what's going to happen in order for me to do this again is we're going to pivot on this bar. So we're going to rotate like that. So this bar is still staying on the bottom left hand side, but it's just rotating round. So rather than having the white cublet facing me, it's going to be the yellow, and this is going to be my starting position then to perform exactly the same moves to get me back to my solved cube. Now the other really interesting thing about this move is because it's mirrored, so you're doing 2, 1 and then 1, 2, it makes it that this is cyclical. And what I mean by that is you can carry on doing the 2, 1, 1, 2 move 18 times and it's going to take you back to the solved cube. So this is a really nice way to practice doing this one-handed. So if I do 2, 1, 1, 2, and if I just keep doing this, when I get to do it, when I've done it 9 times, the cube is going to look solved apart from 2 pieces like this. So I'm halfway through now, and if I carry on another 9 times, this is going to take me back to my solved cube, just like that. Okay, so that's a really nice way to practice. Now, even if you do make a mistake, then I would suggest I'm just going to grab a different cube here quickly, even if it's in a different mix. So let me just give this mix up. Let's imagine I have made a mistake. Well, it doesn't really matter because you can still practice doing these moves to try and get them down as muscle memory without actually getting back to solved. So even if you do mess it up, I would suggest just carrying on practicing doing these moves because that's going to really help you. So as I've mentioned previously, you can do this mix two-handed. Now, this is the way that I would suggest mixing the cube, particularly if you're going to do it in front of your audience, because you do not want to let them know that you're able to mix the cube one-handed. So let's get back to my start position. So I've got white on the face and red on top. and my right hand is going to be gripping the cube in exactly the same way, but my left hand, my thumb is going to be on the bottom with my fingers on top of the left hand layer. So I'm going to do 2, 1, 1, 2, and then again 2. Notice that I'm not gripping on the top here. 1, 1, and then I'm going to extend my fingers out a little bit at the back to do 2. Now the other really key move that you're going to want to learn is the one-handed rotation. Now this is going to become important because when we get into our cube cards mix, rather than you rotating the cube like this, you can simply do it in one hand. And back into the mix, and then out of the mix. Now, in order to do this, you're going to be in your starting position, and once you've done your mix, your index finger is going to come across your thumb. It's going to grip on the cube whilst your thumb releases pressure. You're then going to rotate these in between your fingers, and your thumb's going to come back across and re-grip the cube like that. So let's just do that again. I'm now 4 moves away because I've got my block here and my block here. So I can do my 2-1-1-2 move to get me back to my start position. So I would suggest just starting with a solved cube and just doing this rotation move like that. Now, it might be worth doing this over a bed or a carpet or something, because you may drop this the first few times, and I find trying to do it slowly is actually harder than just doing it quickly like this. Now, if you've been watching this tutorial and thinking, but I am left-handed, well, don't fret, because you can still do this mix, though it's going to be slightly different. So you'll notice when I'm doing my right hand, I'm doing my 2 moves, so these 2 layers are moving. So if you're left-handed, your start position is going to be slightly different, because you're going to want white on the face and blue on top. So you're also going to do a 2 move, but you're going to be performing the 2 move from the bottom like that, and then 1, 1, 2. So again, 2, 1, 1, 2, and that is going to get you back into the cube cards stack. But just remembering that you're going to start from this position rather than right-handed being here. You're just going to rotate the cube to this start position so that you can do your 2, 1, 1, 2, 2, 1, 1, 2 to get back to your solved cube. So play around with that, and you'll be able to apply that then to all of the other parts and routines used in this project. So there is actually an advanced algorithm to get into the cube card stack without performing any rotations. Now the starting position is slightly different because we're going to want green on the face and orange on top. Now an easy way to remember this is to remember the word go, because we've got G for green and O for orange. Now the mix looks like this, and you'll see it didn't require me to rotate the cube at all, and I can get back to my solved cube. So let's have a look at the steps required to get into that mix. So again, with the green on the face and the orange on top, we're going to do a U, R prime, D, L prime, B, U prime, F, D prime. Let's have another go at that again. So go, green, orange, U, R prime, D, L prime, B, U prime, F, D prime to get me into my cube cards stack. Now, the more you practice this, the faster and more fluid you're going to get, and you'll start to feel the moves connect together. So you'll see from me doing it, it sort of just flows around each side, and it's really easy to do. Once you've had a play around, you'll feel these moves just flow together so you can get straight into that stack. So if you like the look of that and you think this would be a nice thing to learn, then feel free to do so. It's not essential, but I do use it myself, and I really like the fact that I'm doing different moves than what I'm going to be doing to when I solve the cube.
Speed cubing law dictates that you have to mix a cube at least 20 times for it to be deemed competition worthy. And you have to make sure that there are no obvious blocks or lines anywhere on the cube. And that's because there are several methods of solving the cube. Now, most of the young kids prefer the really quick methods, but one of my favorite method is the blocks and lines method. And that's where it's one of the unusual methods because it has to be done slowly. Even though it's quick, it's slow. I'll show you what I mean. So watch, and you can see there are no obvious lines or squares complete anywhere on this cube. So let's start with, perfect, these three pieces here. So watch these three blue pieces become a square. So we've created a square, and again, that's the only pattern on this cube. So if we've got a square, we can also create a line. So we've got square, a line, and now watch this side here as it becomes a line and a square. And in fact, you'll see patterns forming all around the cube, almost as if the cube solves itself. So that was the mutation solve, and it's my slow motion solve, and you can obviously see elements of Stephen Brundage's imagination solve in there because I do the turning moves, and also Vincent Quo's block solve, which can be found on one of the Henry Harrius releases. And I love both of those solves because the cube just seems to go from mixed and morph slowly into that solved cube. And whenever I used to perform the imagination solve, it just goes down really well. So what I wanted to do with this, well, there's a couple of things actually. One is the fact that I wanted the cube to look really, really mixed at the beginning. So you've got this, so you can really show it on every single side really fairly, and it really does look completely mixed, and there are no patterns, there are no blocks, no lines, and as you saw in the presentation, I actually emphasized that. But also, this is the same mix as the transformer solve that I teach in volume 2. And well, it's the same mix plus one extra move. And that's because the transformer solve looks like this. And even though I can show it all the way around like that, there is still, if you look on the back, and that's the line that I'm holding, so it's normally, I can cover that quite easily from my audience, that solid line there, plus you have this blue block underneath. And in fact, those are the two patterns that I used to start the mutation solve. But I wanted to get rid of those, so I found just by adding one extra move that now I've got rid of both the line and the square. So now the cube really does look mixed. And so that was my starting point for this one. So what it gives you is that if you get into this mix, you can either end it with an instant solve, or you can end it with the slow motion solve. And if you look at my routine Parallel Minds, which is my sort of walk around matching effect, you can either end that with a slow motion solve or the instant one. So just depending on what feels right at the time. And so let's take a closer look at the mutation solve. Starting with blue in front, yellow on top. Start with a U prime. Little l, which is these two rows. Another U prime. The right finger pushes the bottom row forward with a D prime. L. And finish with a B at the back. And now you can see the cube really does look totally mixed on all sides. And my reference point is this orange W, or at least it looks very close to a W. The other side that's very recognisable is this one here, with a yellow L shape that's attached to the blue L shape, or you could say they look like Tetris shapes. And this is going to be my starting point for the solve. Let me show you that again a bit faster. Blue in front, yellow on top. U prime, little l, U prime, D prime, L, and finish with a B prime. And if I want to go straight to my pattern, I just turn the cube so that the back is now facing me. Turn the cube clockwise once. I'm now in the perfect position for the solve. And then the side that's on my right is the other side that I recognise, and that will be important when I start the slow motion solve. Holding the cube in my left hand, the solve starts with a W this way up. I point this side out to the audience with my thumb on top. And what's going to happen is that these three blue pieces will turn into 4. That's done by pushing the left slice around with your first finger. Now you have a blue square. This move is done as the hand turns over. The bigger movement covers the smaller one. And that's the first block. From the front, it looks as if the extra blue piece just appears. Now you'll notice this red line. You can turn the cube in such a way that the red line is never seen by your spectators by turning the cube like this. At the same time, point out that the blue square is the only solved pattern on the cube. Readjust and put your left thumb and first finger either side of the red line. From this position, you can again turn the cube, but make sure not to flash the red line to your spectator. Then point the blue side out to the spectators and say, we've got a square, now we can also create a line. You cover your left hand over that side and wipe up to reveal the red line. Again, point to the square and then create the line. Once again, point out the square. I create the shapes as I move the cube around. First the square, then the line. Then I hold the square side between my right thumb and second finger. As I show the other side to the audience. Again, point to the square, then the line, and hold this side out. And this is the side I'm going to change next. And I do that by turning the left slice with my third finger like this. And that creates a square and a line together. I reveal this by briefly covering my hand over the side and then wipe up. As the wiping motion happens, my third finger pushes the left slice up like that. Again, wipe and turn. And now you can point out to your spectators that you now have a line and a square together. Next, I need to turn the whole cube anti-clockwise. And I do this by pushing the bottom of the cube up with my third finger so that the side that you just revealed is on top. Now you can easily maneuver your right thumb and finger so that it's either side of the red line. That's going to be your marker for the next two solves. As you rotate the cube forwards, your first finger pushes the top slice clockwise. Again, the first finger pushes the top slice with a U move. This move is covered by the other hand, which takes over holding the cube as you turn it. Then you'll notice that the red line is still facing you, and you repeat that move again by gripping either side of the line and again turning the cube like this. As you finish the second turn, continue turning the cube until you have a white line facing out to your spectators. The white line is going to vanish. As you jolt the cube up and down, the first finger pushes the left slice round to the bottom. Your audience just sees the white line disappear as the cube jolts up and down like that. You can make the jolt quite small, but do it swiftly. Now the cube is almost solved. I then grip the cube again with my right hand, and now you have a few options. You can either grip the middle with your second finger and thumb and do a final U-turn as your other hand briefly covers the front. That's the easiest option. Or if you wanted to do it out in the open, like that, that uses the same movement as you did right at the beginning by twisting your hand around as you do the last turn. My favourite way, however, the spectators are now looking at the blue block on the bottom with the orange line on top, and you are gripping the top slice with your first finger and thumb. These knuckles are bent right back out of the way as far as they can. You want them as far from the cube as possible. Your other hand then covers the front with the ends of your fingers touching the knuckles. Behind the cover of your hand, the second finger reaches out and pushes the bottom two rows to the left like that to solve the cube. As soon as the left fingers touch your right knuckles, that's when you know it's safe for the second finger to reach out. So as soon as the fingers touch the knuckles, the second finger quickly reaches out and does the last move. As soon as you've done the move, bend the fingers right back to get them as far away from the cube as possible. Then your right hand moves away. All this happens as quickly as possible, but be careful not to flash. Once more, start with the W in front of you and the Tetris shapes on your right. You then angle that side out to your audience. Then turn your hand around as you undo your first move, from here to here. I then show the cube around but hide the red line. I re-grip the cube by putting my left thumb and first finger either side of the red line. Again, I show the cube, still hiding the red line. I point out the square and then magically create a line. So you've got a square, then a line. You keep turning the cube further to show this mixed side. Cover it as your third finger pushes up the left slice. You reveal the line and the square together. The cube gets turned clockwise and you re-grip it with your right thumb and first finger either side of the red line. Undo the next move as your right hand turns over, making sure you hide the move with your left hand. Grip the line again and repeat the turn. I then often use my first finger to push the cube round until the white line faces the audience. Jolt the cube up and down as your first finger pushes the left slice up. Finally, grip the top slice. Your left hand comes up as cover, touches the knuckles as your second finger pushes the last slice to the left, and then you reveal the cube is totally solved. I just thought I'd have one more run through from the front so I can talk you through it from an audience's point of view, so that you can see it, because I think it's sometimes quite hard to really get to grips with how it should look from the front and the tips that I can give. So you get into your mix, and from this point I get to my W, and this first part, I think this is a really nice start because it just suddenly happens like that. And again, I don't tend to do a big motion, it's just a turnover motion like that, and that then gets the square. This next part, by just going up and down like that, I've got a red line that's against my thumb here, and just by turning it a certain way, and again you've just got to try this, you've got your eye on the red line all the time so that you can avoid showing that to your audience. Even when you then re-grip so that your fingers have to go either side of that red line at this point, you can then just cover again, do that motion, and you're covering that red line or hiding that red line from your audience all the time. So now you show the audience I've got a square, and now I can create a line. And this is what I quite like this one, because it sort of moves around the cube. You've got a square, a line, and now watch this side. Then you've got a line and a square. And I think that builds quite nicely, because now you've got the two elements that you had in the previous two solves. You then change it up altogether by using Steve Brundage's imagination solve type of moves, where you're holding it against there and you just do one turn, and as your finger pushes that up, you've just got that red line in front of you again, so it's really easy to grab hold of and do exactly the same movement again. Then I use that finger to lift the cube and just push it all the way around to the front, because once that finger's at the front, that's when you have that white line. And this one, I really like this. It's quite quirky. I know other people might not be so keen on this and feel it's possibly a bit obvious, but I just think if you do it quick, it really catches you unaware. It's like, what? That just changed. And again, I do advocate, don't do a massive move, don't do a massive up and down. It's actually more deceptive when you just do a little flick. And this last movement, and what I should have said, and I've looked back at the explanation, and what I now think actually looks a little bit better is if you don't cover this top line as much as I did in the rest of the explanation, I would actually hold this finger back here slightly so that your audience sees as much of the cube as possible when you do that last movement. And it's really important that so just give yourself the time. It doesn't matter if it takes a little bit of time. So you push that forward with this, push that, solve that there, and as soon as you've done that, just get these knuckles back as far as possible so that you disassociate them with being in this sort of area. So it's like that. And as I say, take your time if you need to. If you haven't quite pushed it, or if you get stuck or anything like that, just keep that hand there. Don't be afraid to hold it there for a little bit longer. Take it away. As long as your fingers are away, I think it still looks deceptive. And try and keep this little finger away at the top. Now, the way I tend to prefer to do this end solve nowadays actually is not, I like this one because your two pieces seem to solve at the same time. And so that one I would tend to use probably more for Instagram. And if so, I would possibly speed that moment up. So if you're going to do it for Instagram just to fool people even more, you can take your time with this moment and then maybe speed that footage up so that all of a sudden it just goes woof. So it just looks like you're momentarily got your hands in front. But if I was doing this out, nowadays I would do that. And again, I teach this in the tutorial part, but I think this last one is nice done again out in the open, because it's the last solve. You want to make it as fair as possible. And again, you can hold this finger away from that, and then as you turn it, bring your finger in. And because all the dirty work's actually done, most of it's done behind where the audience is looking anyway, so it's done in this side rather than this side. So it's that move is really well hidden, and you've just got to try it in front of a camera. Even there it looks good, and like that. So that's the final solve. So I hope I've given you all the tips that I can. If there's anything else, I will add that on at the end, but I hope you like it. That is the mutation solve. Volumes 1 to 4 of Refractor are now out there, and for the last few months Kev and I have been really pushing these routines in our professional repertoire and really trying to sort of experiment to make them even better. And what's nice is that I now have a lot more confidence because I'm just going out with one Rubik's Cube, no gimmicks, no bag, and being able to do so many things with just this one cube gives you a confidence. And it's just great being able to give the cube out, having it mixed, and then doing all sorts of things. And of course, over this time, a lot of the routines have changed ever so slightly. Now, one of them is the mutation solve. Kev's got his beautiful one-handed version, which he's called dispersion. And on this download, we've also got my alternative version for the mutation solve, where I just shortened the ending. And that's called mutagen. Kev loves giving these things, these moves and routines names, because he feels they should all have really cool names. So I hope you enjoy our alternative versions of the mutation solve. Now, my alternative version came about because of a couple of different reasons. Now, I remember at a gig performing to a table of people, and I just started the mutation solve, and in the distance I could see the food coming, and not wanting to have the ending ruined, I just did the last three moves at once, and the reactions were really strong. And funnily enough, a few days earlier on the Refractor Facebook page, we'd been having a discussion as to whether doing this move during a solve of any sort, whether it be slow or fast, is too obvious. And so just to give you an example, for instance, for my mutation solve, the last two moves are that and that. And they're done out in the open, and for me, they always get a really strong reaction. So I don't have a problem with it at all. But a lot of people felt uncomfortable about doing that. And I can see both sides of the argument. I think it's more of a magician's thing. But I did think, well, if I'm doing magic to a magician, maybe I should do a slightly different version. So I thought, well, why not just do the last three moves all in one go? And that's what I'm teaching here. But I also think that the mutation solve is a standalone effect. I think if you've just got a minute or so with people, this is a great little routine to do, because there's a lot of magic going on. So it's not just a quick boom instant solve, you're actually building it up until that cube is solved. And because of that, I think it deserves a bit of a nice presentation. So you've got my original presentation, which is on the original mutation solve, and this one here is slightly different, and I hope you like it. Did you know there are several ways to solve the cube? Now, the one most people start with is actually called the beginner's method. You then move on to something called the CFOP method. Now, that takes a lot more learning, but that's the one that most speed cubers use because they're able to solve the cube really, really quickly. Now, there's one really cool method called the roux method, and the idea of that is that you solve the cube in patterns. And actually, I'm looking around this cube. This is perfect because look, there are no discernible patterns anywhere on this cube, but we'll start to create some. And we'll start with these 3 blue pieces here. So watch these 3 pieces turn into a square. So if we start with a square, and again, no other patterns on this cube, if we've got a square, we can also create a line. So we've got a square, we've got a line. Now watch this side here as I can create a line and a square. In fact, you'll see patterns forming all around the cube, almost as if the cube solves itself. So the difference between this mutation solve and the original is that the last 3 moves happen all at once. And let me take you through the whole thing from the start. It's probably the easiest way of doing it. So we start with the 3 pieces and you just turn them over and that turns into a square. And then you've got that nice show here where you say, look, there are no other patterns on the cube. You say, well, we've got a square. We can also get a line. So if we've got a square, a line, and now watch this side, watch the line and the square. And now look, you'll see patterns forming all around the cube. And at this point, this is the extra part, where I go almost as if the cube solves itself. So it's that last 3 moves that are done all at once, and you're doing that as you're doing that Stephen Brundage turning of the cube in the hand. And let me just get back to that stage. So the first one is as you do it normally, you say, and look, you can see patterns forming all around the cube. And at this point, for the original version, I take it this way and I do that move, which solves it one more little bit. Whereas this time, I take it I have that the other way around, and it actually gets pushed by my little finger, then goes up and turns those 2 rows, and then finally that last row gets turned with the first finger like that. And that all happens under the cover of the hand. So where are we here? So it goes like this and like that. And I'll give you a close-up in a moment so you'll get a much better view, and you'll see this from my angle so you can sort of follow along with it a little bit easier. So this, and what's nice is, as I say, the actions go with the words so well, because you can say, and you'll see patterns forming all around the cube, almost as if the cube solves itself. And this doesn't have to be done fast. I think it almost looks a bit more elegant when it's done slowly, that you can see patterns forming all around the cube, almost as if the cube solves itself. So now let's take a closer look from my point of view, and you'll get all the little technical parts of what it should look like in your hands. So starting with blue in front, yellow on top, the algorithm is a U prime, a little l, then a U prime again, and finally a D prime. And you're in this position, and you can tell your red stripe. So this is the point where you're doing the Stephen Brundage imagination solve bits. You've got your red line on there, which you've got your thumb and second finger against, and the first time you do, as you do that, the undo move here, and then normally in the original you would take it here and then undo that move. In this new version, you get your thumb on the back and your finger in the front and turn the cube over. So now the row that was on top is now underneath, and you're going to do the last 3 moves kind of all at once. And you do your first move, which will be a D move, and you do this with this finger here, your third finger, you push, and it just pushes there. So that gets pushed like that, and then there's a little L prime, which is you with your third finger you pull it towards you, and then finally you finish with a U. So let's just go back. So let's just go from those last 3 moves again. You do a D, little L prime, U, and that then just goes all in one fluid motion like that, as you're turning it down like that. And as I say, that happens as you're turning your hand around. So let's go from the move before that, just to show you that part again. So your hand covers in front as you go, and you can see patterns forming all around the cube. So that's turned with the hand covering. Now instead of taking it there, you take it so it goes upside down, and now you've got this row to solve at the bottom. With your left hand in front here, you push the bottom. As you do the next move, you're covering it again with your hand, and this top part's being solved. So that's covered by this hand, and by this time you've got the cube upside down, and you're doing the last move with your little finger, and that's covered by the top half of this hand, like that. And that's as you're producing the cube. So you do the last move and then you produce the cube into the hand. So you're producing the last 2 moves like that. And then I end with a little spin of the cube once more with the bit before it. So this is from the last 2 moves. And that is the shorter version of the mutation solve.
So I absolutely loved the mutation solve when Colin showed it to me. And I just think there's something really nice about having a slow motion solve compared to an instant solve. And I think they both have their place. But it's great if you are doing routines where you can actually do a slow solve and you can do an instant solve. And the beautiful thing about the mutation solve in particular is that you can start doing a slow motion solve, and then you can do an instant solve as well using the transformer solve. So you have those options. Now, for me, when I started to learn the mutation solve, I just couldn't get to grips with how to rotate it like this, doing that part of the routine. And to be honest, I never learnt any solves that way, just because I kind of felt it just looked a little bit unnatural to me. So I never bothered learning one. So what I wanted to do was come up with a version that felt right for me. And I thought it'd be cool if I could actually do everything one-handed, but it looked like I wasn't actually doing anything to the cube and it was just magically solving. So that's why I came up with dispersion, and this is what I want to share with you now. So when you were younger, I don't know if you played the game Tetris, right? Yeah, it's like a really, really popular game. And I like to play Tetris with the cube. So I'll show you what I mean. So if I just have, oh, actually, can you see on this side, we've kind of got like some of those little Tetris shapes, but I hated these ones because you had to get like a matching one to fill the gap. So instead of having these little shapes, I much prefer to have a square, all right? And I'll show you this again. Look, on this side, you can see I've got like 2 little dots, but that's not very useful for getting a line across. So rather than having the 2 little dots, it's much better to get a line, because if you have a square and a line, you can start to build up your blocks much easier. And this is the state that I really hate, is when you're just getting a complete mess and just random blocks everywhere. So rather than having random blocks everywhere, it's much easier if I just turn it into a square and a line, all right? And if I've got a square and a line here, I want to get a square and a line here. And do you know what happens on this side? Well, once I've got the 2 lines, I need to get a 3rd line, and then I can complete the layer. And to complete the layer, all I need to do is get that final block in, and it looks something like that. And that is my routine, dispersion. So I absolutely love dispersion, and this is how I perform it all the time after I perform parallel mines. Now, I do parallel mines slightly differently to Colin, because Colin mixes the cube into the stack and then goes into the false mixes, whereas I usually go into parallel mines after a routine such as cognitive illusion, right, where you end with a solved cube. So what I'll say then is, I'll say, okay, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to give the cube a mix. I just want you to say stop whenever you want. Now, the beautiful thing about this is that once I start mixing the cube, I'm now into stack, and if I do that slowly, by this time, quite a lot of people say stop at this point. So you're already in your stack, and if you want to go into the match, then that's fine. I think it is good though to then at this point add on some more mixes. So what I'll then do is I'll say to someone else, okay, can you give me a number? Whatever number you give me, the cube's going to be solved. And what they think is that the cube's going to be solved all the way around, but what you're actually going to do is you're just going to do some false mixes to retain this stack. So whatever false mixes you want to do, that works perfectly. So once I've done that, I'm then in this position where I'm already in the stack, ready to go into dispersion. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to undo this just so I can explain the setup. So I'm just going to go through the solves really quickly, and I'm going to go through these slowly afterwards. So the first bit is I point out this, I'm going to turn, and that turns into a square, and then on the red side that's going to turn into a line. I've got the square, I've got the line, and then on this side that turns into a square and a line. I then show the back, which is a square and a line as well, and then I'm going to pivot around because this is where I'm going to get the rectangle, and once I've got the rectangle, that leads me to the last move where I can get to my solved cube. Okay, so there's only one extra move to get into the stack for dispersion. So the setup's the same. I'm going to have yellow on the top, blue facing. So this is the standard mutation stack. The extra move that I am adding is an F prime move. So on this side of the cube is going to be an F prime. Now you can you'll see that you've got these 2 red bits on the right hand side, and with an F prime move it's going to leave you in this position. Okay, and this really is your identifier here, the blue and the yellow Tetris looking pieces. And just from looking at this, I mean, you could remember, oh, you've got to have red on top if you want to focus on the centerpieces, red on top. But I always just look, have I got the 2 blue pieces? And if I move this layer down, is it going to make the square? Okay, so in my head, that is what I'm looking for, but you want red on top, green facing you, blue to your audience. So from this position, the first move is essentially going to be an L prime move, which is this. But you're going to be doing this all one-handed. So what I do is I grip the cube on the corner like this with my thumb and my fingers, which leaves my ring finger here available to do this move, okay? And you'll see the square appearing. Now, just with a turn, you're going to mask the fact that you actually moved this. And this is what I really like about this, is that you don't have to do some really big actions. You can literally just turn the cube and it seemingly just like magically morphs into a square. So if I just go back for a second here, it's just a turn like this. So, and you're doing the move at the same time. So this is the first move. And what I'm looking for now is when I rotate my hand back, my red is going to be on top. So I'm going to see these two red pieces here. And this is, the red side is what I'm going to be facing my audience. Now on top, I can see the third red piece, which is going to come and make up this line. So that's what I'm kind of looking for, okay? So I don't worry about the center pieces and the colors really. I'm just looking, have I got this red piece which is going to go into this position? So now I'm going to grip the cube and my thumb is going to go across the center piece so that my index finger is free to be able to do this move, which is an R move. So like that. And again, I'm doing exactly the same motion. I'm just rotating my fingers onto the top of the cube, my thumb on the bottom, and I'm just going to be performing that move. But again, you don't have to make a big movement over this. You just literally turn the cube and it looks like that line just magically solves. So at this position, I now make a thing of pointing out that I've now got a square and I've got a line, and if I do it in this motion, square and a line, I know that I'm gonna have to rotate to the next face, okay? Which is the green face to get me in position for the third solve. And at this point I'll say, right, now I've got the square and I've got the line, do you know what's next? Now most people will say a solved cube, okay? So I say, no, after I've got a square and a line, what I want to do is I want to get a square and a line, okay? So again, I'm in the same position as the first solve, where my thumb and fingers are holding the cube in the corner like this. That leaves my ring finger free, and it's exactly the same move like this. But again, I'm going to do this as I'm rotating the cube. Now, once I've done this solve, I'm going to rotate the cube back to the original position. So I've now got yellow facing me because I want to perform a U move. Now I do this under the guise of saying that now I've got now I've got a square and a line on this side, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to rotate the cube to display this side. But as I do this motion, I'm going to be performing a B move. Okay, so with my index finger, I'm going to be doing a B move like that. So to cover that, I'm going to do that whilst I do the move. So again, from here, this finger is going to push up and do a B move like that, but whilst I rotate the cube. So nothing's actually changed on this side, but I've just rotated this face, which is now going to make the squares all on this side. So once I show this, I then can come back down and I can point out, if you want to, that I've now got squares and lines all over the cube, and I'm just rotating back now to the red face, apart from here, okay, because this is where I need to get the rectangle. Now again, from your point of view, you can see this red line, okay, which is going to go into position here. So at every stage, again, I'm not worried about what colours the sides of the cube are. I'm just looking out for my indicators. I can see this is going to need to go there. So again, I grip the cube in the centre piece. on the edge piece here, the center edge piece, and I'm going to use my index finger again this time to do the same move, and I'm just going to be moving that layer like that. And now you can actually see there's rectangles appearing over the cube. Now I'm not going to rotate all the way back for this one. I'm looking for the blue square, so it's just one rotation. Here's my blue square, and I'm going to grip the cube on this corner piece, okay? And I'm going to do that with my middle finger and my thumb, because I need my ring finger and my index finger free to do the last solve, because effectively I'm going to be doing a, let me get this right, an L prime followed by a small B move, okay? So from this position, my ring finger is going to push up and do my L prime move, and then my index finger is going to do that small B move like that. So let me just jump back. Now the thing about this is that don't rush it, okay? You don't want to rush it, and you want to make sure you've done the L prime move first, okay? So what I do is from this position, I then do this move as I'm rotating, and then there to finish. So let me just jump back. So if I just do a normal rotation, I'm not trying to do them at the same time. I'm making sure I do that one first and then the small move. But it looks like it just happens together. So again, from here, and I get back to solve. So you might wonder, this is the only one that is obviously the trickiest one, because you're doing two layers, one after the other. This is the only one that you might want to spend a little bit of time practicing, but I'm pretty sure after no time you'll get it. But as I said, the key is not to try and rush it, because if you try and rush it, you'll get it wrong. And I did at first. I thought I had to try and do this really fast because I was doing two moves, but really, as long as you know you've done this move first, you can do it pretty slowly to get to your solved cube. So that's really the mechanics of dispersion, and it just depends on how you want to present it. I have started using the Tetris presentation because I like that, but you'll see that I've put another presentation on which is more focused on shapes and squares, but you can say whatever you want. Now the other cool thing about this is that if you don't want to do the slow motion solve the whole way through, you actually get to a point where you are ready to do the transformer solve. So you can do a few slow motion solves and then you can do the transformer solve. So let me just get back into the stack. Okay, so I'm looking for the blue bit that's going to go in. So red on top. So I'm here, I'm going to do the first move to get the square. I'm going to come back round. I'm going to re-grip so that the red is now facing the audience. I'm going to do the second solve. Okay. Now I've got a square and I've got a line. Rotate again so it's the green face facing the audience, yellow's on top. I do the third solve, so I've now got the shapes here. Now this is where you can stop and get ready to do the transformer solve, because on my left hand side I've got the red bar here. So now I can see this red bar after I've done 3 moves. I'm just going to rotate the cube so that the red bar is facing my hand, just like as taught for the transformer solve. So I can then get into position here, and if you wanted to now end and do the transformer solve, you can do it from this position. Okay, so I think that gives you lots of options of things that you can do just with this mix, which I think is fantastic. So I'd love to know how you get on with this. Please post videos and stuff in the Facebook group, because I always love to see performance videos, and it'd be awesome if you wouldn't mind sharing it. So I hope you enjoyed that and have fun with it. Now, I don't know if you know this, but there's actually lots of different ways to solve the cube, and I've come up with my own method, and this uses something that I call the turn technique. So what I need to do first is, if I look at the cube, I'm looking to see if there's any sort of shapes or patterns formed. Oh, and if you see on this side, I've got like a shape here and I've got a shape here. So all I need to do is, if I focus on this shape and if I just turn it, you'll see that turns into a square. All right, so look, if I take, let's take this side, you'll see I've got two red bits here, and if I just give it a turn, you'll see that it turns into a line. So now I've got a square and I've got a line. Do you know what's next? No? So now I've got a square and I've got a line. What I want to do is I want to get a square and a line. And when I've got a square and a line on this side, I can get a square and a line on this side. And you'll see the squares and lines appearing all around the cube, apart from this side. And this is because I need to get the rectangle. And once I've got the rectangle, you'll see there's other rectangles appearing, and that's when I know I'm right close to solving the cube. And that is my adaptation of the mutation solve called dispersion.
So one of my obsessions with the Rubik's Cube is the Rubik's Cube matching effect. And that's ever since Mark Spellman and I were watching Gregory Wilson perform Rubicon back, I think it was around about 2015 at the Blackpool Magic Convention. And we were both blown away by the effect. Absolutely, as I say, that was the one thing that made me want to get into cube magic. Now I've since got the Venom cube, which works really well, but since day one I've wanted to come up with a one cube matching effect, and I wanted to come up with more of an impromptu matching effect, should I say. And I know that you can use the bag, and there are lots of different ways of doing it with several cubes, but I don't really like them because I think they just clutter up the effect. I think being able to use just one cube just simplifies the effect. I don't like the bag. I've never liked the bag, and I know you can do some amazing things with it, and I'm not gonna I don't diss the methods that you can create by using a bag, but I've just thought the bag is the one thing that jars with me, and has done since day one. Why would you carry a Rubik's Cube in a big oversized grocery bag? It just makes no sense. And I remember getting out the bag to my wife and sort of introducing the cube, and that's the first thing she said, why using the bag? And I've also seen other cube magicians perform this, and the audience members immediately said, I think it's to do with the bag. And I know they haven't got a method, but yes, it is. If you've got a bag there which doesn't really look like it has anything to do with the cube, it must be to do with the bag. So anyway, that's my little rant about the bag, and that's why I don't use it. But as I say, there are so many good effects that are done with a bag. You used to do sometimes think, yeah, but there are loads of good things you can do, but I want to try and get rid of it. So that's why I've been on my quest to come up with a one cube matching effect. Now, when I say one cube matching effect, obviously you need something else to compare that cube to, but I would say, as I do it in the trailer, I can have a little key ring that's sort of dangling down from here. That's quite good. If I want to use another cube, or even better, I think, is to send somebody a text from the start, and to do it much more like you get these like the electronic effects without using electronics. So again, just to make it a bit more impromptu, so that, and if you use the electronic effects, they're amazing, of course, but what if they break down, or what if for some reason something doesn't work? This could well be your backup. And I don't claim any originality for this method. I have to say that from the off, because even though I came up with a method like 2 or 3 years ago, I've since spoken to other cube magicians at conventions that have had similar ideas, and Carl Hein brought out the Fundamentals of Cube Magic PDF last year that has these type of concepts in as well. But what I'm showing you here are my touches and the way and what I came up with. And I think I definitely encourage you to read Carl Hein's PDF, because he's come at it from a slightly different angle and has some really nice touches in there as well. And I think once you start to play around with this, I think you'll realize that if you want to do surefire stock tricks, this is the only way that you can do it. And the way I came to this is, of course, I think you start with algorithms, and on volume 2 I've got the cyclone mix, which is what started off. I always thought, well, what if I could get the spectators to say stop as I'm doing the cyclone mix, or possibly using other F2L algorithms, longer and shorter. The trouble is they're just not very reliable, because most of them are quite long, and if a spectator says stop halfway through, at this point you've still got this, actually that was a few too many, so if you've still got way too many moves to go, and to get out of that is quite hard. So one day I was chatting to Mark Spellman, and we were talking about the truffle shuffle, which is just a beautiful shuffle where you're unmixing the cards as you're pretending to mix them. And I thought, wouldn't it be good if I could do that with the Rubik's Cube? And we were chatting about different methods. And then it suddenly occurred to me, what if I could really do that, mix and unmix? So you're starting to do these type of mixes where it really does look like you're actually mixing the cube, but you're still actually almost always in that same stack where you're getting back to your solved cube really quickly. So let me explain the idea behind this. And so the idea is that you let me start from my favorite side, the blue and the yellow. So you mix and you unmix. Now, of course, that doesn't look very convincing, but if you add some movement with that, that's where it starts to look a bit more deceptive. So you mix, unmix, mix, unmix. And you see that the mix state doesn't last very long before it's mixed again, but because you're adding movement to that, that's, as I say, that's what makes it deceptive. And so I'm going to show you, I think I've got about 5 or 6 different quick little algorithms on here that just mix the cube and unmix them very quickly. And just by mixing those about and just practicing that, I think you'll find out how surefire this method is. And even if the spectator says stop at this point, you can get out of that super easy, because you've only got 2 at the most moves to go. Normally, I found that spectator says stop at the end of a sequence anyway, and I hit it dead on much more of the time, because it sort of seems to be just as you're finishing a sequence, the spectators think that you've actually you're shuffling the cube and then unshuffling it, which is the only way it can be done. But they kind of suspect that your algorithms are a lot longer, like they originally were when I was doing the F2L algorithms. So I'm also going to teach you a way to get your spectators, where a spectator can name any number and you mix it to that number and you're still back in your stack. So I'm going to teach you this from the solved cube, because this is how I suggest you learn it, because the more used to the movements you get from the solve cube, you'll just find it easier to learn this way. And then afterwards I'll tell you how to practice it and then go on to the numbers part of it. So let's take a closer look. The Z notation stands for turning the whole cube clockwise like this. It won't be counted as one of the turns of the cube, but it helps to make these mixes more deceptive. As they don't count as turns, I've coloured them yellow so that you can easily tell the difference between the moves that count and the turns that don't. Start with 3 fingers on top and thumb underneath as you make the first R turn. So 3 fingers on top as you do your first R turn. Then the cube gets rotated clockwise once, which is Z. Then the third finger pushes the bottom slice forward with a D prime move. Again from the top, R, Z, D prime. And just practice doing it smoothly. This is another simple 2-move mix, starting with L prime. Clockwise turn with a Z and finish with a U as you make the first R turn. L prime, Z, U. 1, 2. 1, 2. For this mix, the L prime 2 move is done in one move. The 3 fingers reach round to the front and turn the cube twice. Once, twice. I'll show you that again. 1, 2. So let's do it for real. 3 fingers in front and do L prime 2. The cube gets turned with a Z, and then the first finger does a U2, but does the turn separately. 1, 2. So this is a 3-move mix because the first 2 moves are done as one. L prime 2, then turn the cube and do the last 2 moves as 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. This time you start on the right. The 3 fingers go in front and perform an R2, followed by a Z, and finally a D prime 2. This is another 3-move mix, as the first 2 moves again are done in one go. R2, Z, and then D prime 2 is done as 2 clicks. 1, 2, 3. This mix starts the same as the previous one with an R2, followed by a Z, followed by D prime, then another Z, and finish with an L prime. So R2, Z, D prime, Z, L prime. 1, 2, 3. This mix starts on the left-hand side with an L prime 2, followed by a Z, followed by a U, Z, and finish with an R. L prime 2, Z, U, Z, R. 1, 2, 3. The next two mixes are similar to the previous ones, except you are turning 2 slices instead of 1. Start with a small R2, followed by a Z, U, Z, and finishing with an R. So, small R2, Z, U, Z, R. 1, 2, 3. This one starts with your left thumb reaching behind to grab the 2 left slices and moving them forward to the front with a little L2, followed by a Z, D prime, Z, and then finishing with an L prime. So that's little L2 Z, D prime Z, L prime. 1, 2, 3. This is a 4-move mix, starting with a small R prime, followed by an R, followed by a Z. Next you perform a D prime, Z, and end with an R. That's small R prime, R, Z, D prime, Z, R. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that should have given you a handful of mixes, and what I suggest is don't start with all of them, just start off with 2 or 3. And I'd say there's most of them I used to start with just the one where you're just doing it, you're just moving one and moving it back, and that's such a simple one to learn. You just can't get it wrong. And then you can add a 3-move mix as well, and just using those will just give you enough to get you started, and where you can just, as long as you're turning the cube, I think it looks fairly convincing. And they're really easy to practice, because especially if you're just practicing from a solved cube, you can be sat anywhere watching TV, and you can just keep on mixing and mixing and mixing until your heart's content. And every now and again you look down at the cube just to check that it's still in its solved spot, and if it is, then you know you've done it correctly. But as I say, it's something you can practice really easily, just as you're sat, and try and do it without thinking about it. The other bit of advice I've got this, and this is, I've had this advice on the Cyclone mix as well. Do your mixes gently. The softer and slower you do them, the more convincing it looks. And I reference Stephen Brundage. If you watch the way he mixes the cube, it's just soft, slow, and just really, really casually. As soon as you start to make your movements fast, they start to look like set pieces, and they start to look like you know what you're doing. Also, the other thing about them, as soon as you start doing them fast, you're in danger of going wrong. As soon as I start to go fast, I start to get overshoot and then almost mix the cube up. The more gentle you do it, the more likely you are not to mess up at all. So you're just literally doing it really slow motion. And so those are my tips on practicing the force mix, just to get a few of the basic algorithms. But the more you practice them, I think the more ingrained they'll become. They're really, really not hard. So the other thing is, of course, is what happens if a spectator says stop at the wrong moment. So you're doing your mix and the spectator says stop whenever you like, and they stop you here at this point. Now at this point I'm realizing that all I've got left is one move, because I know the set moves, and I do a gesture and I've sorted out that last move. And that's why I said this is just so super easy. So because you've just got that one movement, that one move left to go, as long as you do a big movement to cover that small movement. So I gave you the chance to go on, but you said stop here, and in that movement just work out something to say at the end of each one. Are you sure you want to stop there? I can do two more, I can do one more, and just say something. And as I say, the more you do this, you'll kind of work out your own pattern for this. But the other thing is, as I do the movement, just in case your mix has a few blocks in it, I tend to face, if I'm got that mix left to go, I tend to face this side to the audience so that there's no indiscretion, so they don't suddenly see a block here that's not a block. So like this, if they remember this color scheme and all of a sudden it looks like this, then it might jar. So you show your audience from front side on and do that movement like that, because they're less likely to notice that it's in a slightly different orientation than they are to notice the difference between that and that. Of course, as I say, if this is done from a mixed cube, let's get back to here. So so if they are here, so you can see this is all joined up. So if you suddenly see it go to that might jar a bit. But if you're looking at this part, you can go like that. That's less likely to jar, and you can also angle your hand so that it's the same way from the front. So hopefully, and if for any reason you have two movements, two pieces, because you will only ever be two moves away from your solved state at the most. So if they stop you here, I do my first move there, and I do my second move like that. So you do them again, you do it all in that one movement, and I'm back in my starting position here. So let's have a look at the force by numbers next. So this is the force mix by numbers, and the idea is that a spectator can name any number between 1 and 10. So let's say, for instance, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and you are still in your stack. So to be able to get back to my, that was cube card stack, of course, back to your solved cube. So the idea is really, really simple. If you know the stop trick, then this will just become self-explanatory. As I say, most of you will probably work this out already. Because you're only dealing with numbers, most of your mixes that I've taught you are either a 2 set or a 3 set. So it's really easy to work out straight to whatever number you want. So if a spectator says 5, I know it's a 2 set and a 3 set. If a spectator says 7, actually if they say 7, I'll tend to use the 4 set to start with. You go 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'll use 5, 6, 7. I'll do it that way. If they say 8, again I'll use, if they said 8, I'd probably use 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I'd use a 3, a 2, and a 3. And I'd use the 1 set of 3, and then I'd probably use the backwards 3 actually, which is, so you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So just by knowing, the better you know your force mixes or the individual ones, the easier it will be just to go straight to whatever number you want. And of course, if they say 1, you just go, just 1? You happy with that? That's fine. So this is the place you wanted me to stop at. So again, the bigger movement covers that smaller movement. So it's really as simple as that. Just play around with it. Now I'm going to give you numbers from 2 all the way to 10 and different sets of force mix for each one, just to give you an idea of how this could work. But as I say, I think if you know your force mixes well enough, you'll make this up as you go along. I don't even think about it. I don't have set moves for each number. I just think in denominations of 2s and 3s. So try this out. I think once you get to know it, it'll become really easy, and it's, if you think about it, it's super easy and really reliable. So you can't go wrong, in my opinion. So give it a try, and that is the force mix by numbers.
This was filmed a while ago, and for some reason I started with green in front rather than the usual blue, but it's not important in this case anyway, as you could start from any position. Starting with green in front, yellow on top, I tend to move the top with a U prime and then do a gesture to undo the move. So you mix with a U prime and then undo the move with a gesture. You have the notation above, and in this case you're just doing mix 1.2. 1, 2. 1, 2. Then from a mixed cube, 1, 2. 1, 2. This is mix 4.2. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Now from a mixed state, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. This is a 4-move mix and has mix 1.1 and 1.2. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And from a mixed cube, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. This 5-move mix consists of mixes 1.1 and 2.1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And from a mixed cube, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is a 6-move mix and is 5.0 and 1.2 and goes like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And from a mixed cube, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is 3.2 and 5.0 and totals 7 moves. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And from a mixed cube, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This 8-move mix consists of 1.1, 2.1 and 3.2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Then from a mixed cube, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. This is 4.2, 1.1 and 5.0. And this is a 9-move mix. Start with 4.2, 1.1 and finish with 5.0. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And from a mixed cube, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Finally, this 10-move mix is 4.2, 5.0 and 2.2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And now from mixed, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Now, as a conclusion, I thought I'd give you 2 things to think about, and these I think are very, very important. Now, the first one is to work out orientations and where does a mix start and finish, because they don't often start and finish in the same place. Now, with my cyclone mix, for instance, it starts and finishes in the same place, or there's another variation where it finishes upside down, and if I do it again, then it ends up the right way around. So with this one, they can be quite random because they're obviously 2 sets and 3 sets, so 1, 2. Now I've worked out that instead of my blue in front, yellow on top, I've still got blue in front, but I've got orange on top. My yellow is on this side. So when I finish my mix, I've just got to turn it this way up. And if you do a combination of mixes, for instance, work out which combination you do. If there's a 5-move mix, so where you're doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I now know that I've got the green in front of me and red on top. So to get back to my original position, I just need to turn the cube once this way, and now I'm back in my starting position with blue on top and so blue in front, yellow on top. So think about it, because you want to make that last part look convincing. So once you've done this, you just go, well, this is the place you stopped me at, or this is the number that you chose, and then you pick up your item, whether it be the mini cube or whether it be a phone with the photo of an orientation in, to compare it to. So you don't want to be sort of looking around for, right, which side is the right side, because I think that starts to look a bit suspicious. So that's the first thing to consider, is orientation. Where do things start and finish? The second thing to consider is how to make these things look convincing to your audience, or how to make these mixes look convincing to your audience. And this, I think, is a very individual thing. I think it's really useful to really carefully think about this, because, for instance, if I did say a bit of a longer list, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. If I do it like that, it starts to, I think, if I do it like that, it starts to look a bit like I almost know what I'm doing, because I'm doing it too smoothly. Whereas if I do it like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So sticking little pauses between the mixes, I think, gives it a bit more of a random feel, or at least it does for me when I watch myself back. I think that looks more convincing. And as I say, this is an individual thing, so it's a really important thing for you to kind of film yourself doing this and work out how does it look most convincing. And again, this is just experience and performing this out, because as soon as you start to perform it, I think you'll realize where, when your audience starts to go, oh, I think you can just see it on their faces. I think he knows what he's doing. So 2 really, really important things to consider. But I hope that's given you a great little insight into how you can make apparently random look mixes, how to make those mixes stay in your stack and to give you that perfect matching effect. So that is the force mix, the stop force, and the force by numbers. I hope you find it useful. So I'd just like to give a massive shout out to Takamiz Uzui for letting us include this on this project, because this is a great little colour force, and I think it's the ultimate impromptu colour force for a Rubik's Cube. And it's just so simple. That's what's so good about it. It's the simplicity, I think, that works this. And I fooled Mark Spellman with this. I can't believe I did. But he was going, well, how does that work? And so I thought that was quite cool. So what I did, so all it entails is you turning the cube like this. So imagine this was happening behind my back, because your hands are going to be exactly the same position, but just behind your back. And all I'm doing, I'm looking like I'm really turning this cube randomly. But actually, I'm trying to force the color white, and I'm just keeping the color white on my left, against my left palm. That's all I've got to think about. So the white is against my left palms, because it's going to be against my left palm when my hand's on the bottom, and it's also going to be, as I come on top, my hand goes on top. So now it's on the bottom, now it's on top. So I'm just, but because if you look at this now, it looks like the cube's being quite randomly mixed, but actually it's kind of just staying in the same position, or at least it's just moving from there to there, top to bottom, top to bottom. So as long as I'm aware which side my left hand is, that as soon as the spectator says stop, if my left hand is on the bottom, I just turn this side up, so now I'm facing the white side to them, and I say to my audience, just remember the colour that's facing you now, which will be the white side. If the colour is on top, if my left hand is on top, I just lift my left hand up and say, just remember the colour that's now on top. So you just can't miss with this. Just try it. but I think it's very disarming. And so it's really as simple as that. I'm going to show you this from my point of view now as well, so that you get the view on how this would look to an audience.
This is how the audience would see it. Again, we're going to force the colour white. The white goes against my left palm. And I rotate the cube round like this, which really looks like the cube is being mixed, keeping the white against my left palm. Then, if they say stop here, I say, now remember the colour that's facing you. Alternatively, if they say stop here, I say, remember the colour that's on top. And that's all there is to it. Once again, the white goes against my left palm. And I turn the cube like this. If they say stop when my left palm is on the bottom, I say remember the colour that's facing you now. Or if they say stop when my left hand's on top, I say remember the colour that's on top. In actual fact, I could just say the same for both. Stop here, remember the colour that's facing you. Or if they stop here, the same. Remember the colour that's facing you. And that's Takami's Uzui's rotation force.
I sent Kev the rotation force to upload, and he looked at mine and he went, I do mine differently than that. And so we had a bit of a discussion, and I thought his was quite interesting actually, whereas mine sort of quite in the hand and almost quite closed with the way I do it. But for me, I think it still works because you really see the cube being mixed. Kev does his much more sort of fingertips, so that might appeal to a few of you, and he's got some nice subtleties in his. Now, we don't actually know whose is closest to Takami's original rotation force, but nonetheless, you've got two options to choose from. So this is Kev teaching his version of Takami's rotation force.
Okay, so I thought it was worthwhile to show you a close-up performance of Takami's rotation force, and I'm really grateful that Takami's has allowed me to teach this and include this on the Refractor project. So the way that I perform this is that the cube is going to go behind your back, and the cube is going to be rotated like this, and your spectator can say stop at any point, and when they say stop, they're going to stop at a colour on the side of the cube, but this is going to be a force, so this will be a colour that you want them to select. So how do you do that? Well, the first thing is making sure you always know the position of your force side of the cube. Now, the way that I do that is, if you can imagine this cube is behind my back, I'm going to have my thumb on the side that I want to force. And when I rotate it, I'm then going to put my fingers on the force side. So I'm going to rotate it like this, and then it's my thumb connecting to the force side, and then fingers, thumb, fingers, thumb, fingers, and so on. So at any point, I always know where that force side is. And when you start practicing this, I would suggest just going in your head, fingers, thumb, fingers, thumb, fingers, thumb, fingers, thumb, so you always know your force side. So how do you get the display nice? Now, what I suggest you do is, rather than rotating the cube like this, because you're only going to be showing four sides of the cube, is you want to do a rotation like this, so you're freely displaying at fingertips all sides of the cube, and it just looks really free and fair. So how do you do that? Well, rather than just rotating forwards, you're going to rotate your wrist out like this. So out, 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 out. And if you practice this, you'll see that it's a really nice free display of the cube. So now you've got that down, how do you actually get the force for when they say stop? Well, you need to be rotating the cube at speed, and when I say speed, it's something like this, okay? Because if you're doing it slowly and they say stop, your force colour is on the other side of the cube, and it might look a little bit strange that you then turn the cube like this to say, remember this colour. If you're doing it at speed, then whenever they say stop, you can get to that colour. And the reason being is because when they say stop, you're not going to have an instant reaction to be able to go, oh, stop like that, exactly when they say. You're going to be slightly delayed, and because you are rotating it at speed, you can get back, you can turn back to your colour really fast. So even if they say stop here, you're going to be doing it at speed where you can go, okay, stop here, remember this colour. So I would suggest just practicing that and getting it pretty fast, and also knowing, you see I'm doing thumb, fingers, knowing where your force side is on the cube. So what else is left to say then? Well, not much. That's pretty much what you need to do. So again, when it goes behind your back, make sure you know which side you're going to force. Make sure you're rotating out to display all sides of the cube, and make sure you're doing it fast so that whenever they say stop, you can stop at the colour that you would like to force on the cube. And I think this is just a really beautiful force, whereby it looks really, really free. You're being really open, and wherever they say stop, you're going to be stopping on the force that you want them to stop at. So have a play around with this. I suggest maybe practicing it on some friends and family first, just to make sure you are hitting that colour. But also, if you've got a mirror, it's worthwhile putting it behind your back and just watching yourself do the rotations, and just practicing when people say stop and you're here. So the other thing that I'll just mention is that because you're doing it at speed, you're not going to stop exactly when they say stop. So even if it's here and they say stop, I think it's fine just to carry on your rotation and go, okay, remember this colour. So one other thing is, I'm always trying to kind of keep the force colour facing out to the audience. So this rotation is going to be the fastest to get back. I'm always trying to get back as quick as I can to my force colour. So force, 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 so that if they say stop when I'm on here, I've not got far to go. If they say stop when I'm here, I've just got to quickly turn it again and say, okay, this is the colour that you need to remember. So I think that's it. I really love this force, so have a play around with this, and I think it's a really nice, free, fair selection of a colour just using one single cube.
I've got my amazing wife Sam with me today. Sam, say hello.
Hello.
And she's going to help me out today. Now, normally I do this on several spectators, but we've just got the one Sam today. And before I start, Sam, I sent you a text message earlier on, didn't I?
You did.
And you haven't opened it?
No, you said not to.
Excellent. So that will hopefully become useful later on. Now, I'm going to show you something with my very favourite toy, the Rubik's Cube. I'm rather obsessed with this, as Sam will tell you. But so I'm going to rotate the cube behind my back so you can see all the colours, yeah?
Yeah.
Just say stop whenever you like.
Stop.
Okay? Whatever colour is facing you now, just remember that colour.
Okay.
Yeah? Let me just mix the cube up a little bit. So I'm going to get you to choose a couple of colours. Now you've got one in your mind now, and before you think of another one, I'm going to start mixing the cube up. And now obviously if I mixed it out in the open, I might be able to remember how I mixed it. So I'm going to do this behind my back, so not even I can see it. So in fact you can see, in fact just say stop whenever you like.
Stop.
Stop. Okay. From here, I've got to try and get to a colour that you don't even know you're going to pick yet. So you've got one colour in mind now.
Yeah.
Think of any other colour on the Rubik's Cube and name it out loud.
Orange.
Orange. Okay, now I can see the orange in various different places. I've just got to get to it. So watch this. I should be able to do this quite quickly as well. Oh, before I start, there is only one cube behind my back.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so from now, I think that quick. You can see the cube is mixed.
Yeah.
But what colour did you have?
Orange.
Orange.
Haha.
That was my little warm up. So next is going to be a little bit harder because I'm going to try some mind reading. So now you're thinking of another colour, aren't you?
Yeah.
I've got to get to that colour just by you thinking of that colour. So, okay. I think I've got it. I'm not 100% sure, but I've committed myself. So for the first time, name that colour out loud.
White.
White. You can see the entire cube is mixed and we have white. Right, so that's all the hard work done for me. Now it's over to you. So you're going to determine the outcome of what happens next. And in fact, let me just get rid of the white and mix the cube up a little bit more. And in fact, again, you can see that being mixed up.
Yeah.
And so from here, as I said, you're going to determine the outcome. So name a number between 1 and 10, say.
Out loud.
Out loud.
7.
7. I'm even going to give you the chance to change your mind. Do you want to change your mind?
No.
No, you're happy with 7?
Yep.
Okay, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I was hoping that was going to solve the cube, but sadly it didn't. No. But I did send you a text message, so this was my backup plan, and hopefully that text message will be relevant right about now. Open it up.
Okay. Hold on. It's a photo of you holding a cube.
A cube, right. Let me just take the phone off you.
See that?
So, am I angling this correctly?
See the other side a bit more.
This side?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, I can see that side.
Do they match?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, they do.
Oh, well, I think you did really well there, so that's perfect. Just think about it, that is one of 43 quintillion ways of mixing this cube. And if you just had a couple, or even one move more, it would have been a different outcome, yeah? Now the trouble is we're left with a mixed up cube, so let me just give it a little shake like that, and boom, solved.
Very good.
So Colourtron is the routine I do if I want to perform Rubik's Cube magic to a large audience, and it's the routine that if a host says to me at the end of the night, could you just do one more for everybody, this is the routine I do, and it always plays really, really strong. It packs small, plays big. So this is the one that I think is most appropriate probably for a stage work or for parlour as well, even though I've done this in a close-up situation as well. Now unfortunately we didn't have a live performance of the whole routine. When we went out filming the trailer, we were more concentrated on the reactions. But Kev and I intend to, I mean, you saw from the trailer that all these routines go down really, really well with a real audience anyway. But Kev and I definitely intend to post up more videos of us actually doing these routines to real people, because we do think that's quite important. Now, there's one particular part in Colourtron where I do the matching effect, and I give the prediction out at the beginning. Now there's several different ways of doing it. In the trailer you see me do it with a mini cube or a key ring that's hung down off my belt loop. So that's one way of doing it. The other way I did it was with Sam just now, where I sent her a text. Now the reason that I think would be more appropriate to do at a party or a corporate do or something like that, whereas to have a cube dangling down for street magic is perfect. I didn't think it was right to ask people for phone numbers in that sort of situation, so you've just got to judge it for yourself, and it depends on your performance style. But in the explanation, I actually do it with I actually use one of Kev G's cube cards, and I put it into an envelope and I give that out at the start. So that's what I do for the explanation, but I'm sure you'll come up with your own ways of giving out that prediction at the beginning. But there's a few ideas just to get your creative juices flowing. So let's take a look at Colourtron explained bit by bit. So for the purposes of this explanation, I'm going to assume that we have 3 spectators. The third one, and I'm going to go backwards, so it's going to go 3, 2, 1, and that's how the selection process goes, but once the trick starts, it will go 1, 2, 3. So you start with a third spectator and you give them an envelope, and in that envelope is secretly going to be this cube cards card from Kev G's 2-on-1-2 mix cube cards, and that goes into an envelope and gets given to the third spectator. To the other 2 spectators, they get to choose a colour, and the way you handle this is, because one of them has to be forced, you say, I want you both to pick any colour on the Rubik's Cube, but just so that you don't pick the same one, I'd just like one of you to say stop. And now you do the Takami's colour force, which is taught elsewhere on this download. So in the colour you've got to force is orange, and it will become clear exactly as to why it's orange as the trick goes on. But just so that you know that, because I'm going to teach everything from Cube Cards Mix, and Cube Cards Mix starts with white in front and red on top. So that's facing you. So white in front, red on top. And the colour you have to force is the one that's underneath in front of your starting point. And that will be orange in this case. So orange is the one you force for the second spectator, and then you ask the first spectator to think of any colour they like, any other colour except for the one that the second spectator's picked. So that's the selection process, and now let's get on with the trick. Before I go any further, it's really important that you memorise whereabouts the colours are on the cube, and I'm going to give you a couple of tips on this. But we're going to start from the point of view of cube cards, with the white in front and red on top. White in front, red on top. And you might not know this, but it's the similar colours that are opposite each other. For instance, white and yellow are similar colours, so they're opposite each other. Red and orange are similar colours, so they're opposite each other. And the blue and the green are opposite each other. So that's one thing worth remembering. So from the point of Cube Cards Mix, you have white in front, red on top. So straight away you know that yellow is opposite white, so yellow is now at the back. Red, which is on top, you know that orange is the colour underneath, which is the colour you forced anyway. So red on top, orange underneath. So how do you remember green and blue? Well, that's quite easy, because GR for green is on my right, GR right, and blue, BL, blue is on my left. So blue left, green right. So that's the colour scheme of the cube that you're going to have to remember, because you're going to have to remember whereabouts everything is once you do this behind your back to get to the 2 colours that the spectators have chosen. So now you're familiar with the colours, let's get back to the routine. And just to quickly recap, 2 spectators have chosen a colour, one of them's forced, and the third spectator has the prediction, which will come in handy later on. You now have to start mixing the cube, and what I tend to do is, just to get used to the fact that you're actually going to be doing a lot of the mixing behind your back, I stick the cube behind my back, and at this point I get into cube card stack. But, and this is where the important part is, you don't start from the red in front, red on top, white in front. You start from the opposite side. And that's because when you then undo the 2-on-1-2 cube card stack, you want to end in this position with the white in front, red on top. So to end in that position, you start on the opposite side. So Kev teaches his one-handed rotation move in the cube cards part of this download, and so you start with red on top, white in front. You do the one-handed rotation move, and you'll now notice that you have blue on top and yellow in front, and this is where you start your shuffling process. So you stick the cube behind your back, and you then do 2 1 1 2, 2 1 1 2, and the way I know now that I'm in the right position is that I've got the yellow sort of that looks like a W in front, and when I do the one-handed rotation, I've got the white bars there. And so, and in fact that's the opposite of when you do the cube card stack. You have the white is the W and you have the yellow bars there. So this is the point where I start to shuffle the cube, and I start to use the force mix for this, and this is where I use the stop trick first, because I start to mix the cube and I say to the first spectator, say stop whenever you like, and wherever they say stop, you stop, and you go from this point onwards. I want you to name whatever color you're thinking of. So this is the first spectator that hasn't had the force, so let's say they name green, for instance. So green for example. So I know in my head that green is on my right, because GR, green, right. So when I now solve this, and I say from this point I've got to get to green, and I try and be a bit vague about this point, and I say I'm going to do this behind my back, and as I go behind my back I do the first 2 1 1 2 behind my back so that they can't see it. I then say, oh, just to verify, there is nothing else behind my back other than this one cube, and this one cube is mixed. And I hold out this side because if you do the 2 1 1 2 stack, there are quite a few big blocks, and I don't like to point those out at people because all of a sudden that starts to look a bit more solved. And even this bottom side where you've got the 2 fat rows, the most mixed side is this one here, and that's the one that if you're holding it in your normal position, that's the one that sort of you point outwards to the spectator, and I sort of cover the other sides with the rest of my hand, so they now think that the cube is totally mixed. I then, as I turn back round to face the spectators, I then do the final 2 1 1 2. Now I know I'm in my stack, and this is where the color memorization comes into play, because I know that green is now on my right, so it's on, for me now, it's on this side here. And so I now turn the green to the bottom behind my back and do the 4 4 6 mix. So I then go into 4 4 6, and I've done all this behind my back, and then bring it out, and I always bring it out from the left side, and now I can clearly show, I delay that moment of showing the bottom. I say, look, the entire cube is completely mixed and we have green. So that's how I get to my first color. So next you've got to get to the second spectator's color, and what's really nice about this is that you already know what the color is. And this is where the routine builds more, I think, than the original way I used to do this, which was Evgeny's way, where I just asked for the second color. Because in this case, you know it, so you use that to your advantage. It looks like mind reading at this point. Not only does it look like mind reading, but you skillfully get it from this mix point here, where the green is on the bottom, to the orange. And now the way I handle this is I say, so we've got the green, I want you to think of your color. Now obviously I know it's not green, but think of your color, and I'm going to replace the green with whatever color you're thinking of now. And I'm not a great mind reader, so I keep this simple. I just look at them, go, I think I've got it. This might be a guess, but let me have a go. So at this point I just have a quick scan of the cube, because I have to know where my force color, which is orange, is, where it's going to end up once I solve the cube again. So in this case, I know it's not on top, and if you watch the 446 section on this download, you'll know how to get to the next colour. If it's not the middle colour on top, in this case it's orange, I know I'm looking for the double blocks down on the bottom row, and in this case it's on my left. So there is orange, so when I now solve the cube, that's where orange is going to be. So I put it behind my back again, and then do the 446 mix to the solved state, and now orange is on my left. I then turn this orange to the bottom, so now my orange is on the bottom, and you'll notice that the white is now in front and the red is now on top. So this, you're actually in cube cards position. So when you then resolve the next stage, you'll be in cube cards position. So this is why the second color needs to be forced. So I do my 446 mix, and my orange is now on the bottom and the rest of the cube is mixed. And I normally sort of take it from behind my back and say, you'll notice now that the green is now mixed, and in fact the entire cube is mixed, but now we have orange on the bottom. And that's how you get to the second spectator's colour. I always act a little bit relieved after revealing the second spectator's colour, because I think it's important to emphasise how impossible this is. Because if you think about it, aside from this first, what you've just done with the first spectator, you've read the second spectator's mind and then managed to get to their colour from this really quite mixed state. So milk that moment, I think it's important. So after that, you can also relax a little bit and say, let me just mix the cube up a little bit further. So you put it behind your back, and this is what you do behind your back. You then do the 446 mix, which once you get back to the solved state, you'll find that in front of you, well, you won't find this because it will be behind your back, but this is why you forced this second color, so that you end up in this position where you've got white in front of you and red on top, which of course is cube cards position. So you then do 2 1 1 2 2 1 1 2, and then you're in cube card stack, and you then take the cube out from behind your back and casually keep on mixing it. And this is where you use more of the force mix, and you continue doing the force mix as much as possible. And then you turn to the third spectator and say, name me a number between 1 and 10. And before you do, think about it, because whatever number you decide is going to determine the outcome of what is about to take place. And I think that's a really strong thing to say, because later on when they think about it, but what if I'd chosen a different number? So let's say they say 8, for instance. So you do 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8. So from this point, you're back in your cube card stack. So if you don't know how to do that, refer to the force mix by numbers. And at this point, you can then point out you determined the outcome of this cube with that number, and you can then go into the 43 quintillion combinations of the cube, and then say, do you remember I gave you an envelope right at the beginning? In that envelope is just one card, and in the one on that card is Rubik's cube, which is mixed in a certain state, and now that matches. Now I think that's a super strong ending for this. You've just revealed the first spectator's colour, you've mind read and got to the second spectator's colour, and then you've mixed the cube further, and the third spectator has determined this outcome which matches this prediction. I mean, really, that's such a strong building routine, but it doesn't finish there. So of course, no Rubik's Cube routine is complete until the cube is back in its solved state. And as you're in a perfect position to do so, why not? So I start by doing 2 1 1 2 as people are still reacting from the last effect, and as I'm just relaxing back. And quite often at this point, it's nice to wait until somebody actually asks you to do so, because I think then it's even stronger. And quite often people will, because eventually somebody will go, well, can you solve it from there? And you go, let's try. And then you do either a shake solve, or you do Henry Harris's Rubik's Nightmare Solve, which is a great one to do, which probably most of you already know anyway. But that is my monster cube routine, and for me it has all the right elements, and so give it a try. I hope you like it. So I just thought I'd explain a couple of things in the conclusion, mainly that the footage you see for the explanation, and that's just the entire explanation, that was filmed months ago. And so the colour's not that good, so I apologise for that, but I think I explained it quite well, and I just haven't had time to redo it, and if I get the chance I probably will. But as I said, I think the explanation's really, really clear. And at the time I was using the cube card stack mainly because cube cards was being taught as one of the stacks on this project. And originally, if you didn't know, this project was going to be just a single download, but this has just grown and grown and grown, and so that's why we just shelved Colourtron until a lot later, because we were going to introduce that with the Force Mix, which is what Volume 3 is really all about. And so that's why I do it with cube cards on there, and that's also why the footage is, as I say, I was a lot less experienced. But the way I do it now, and you'll see me use this a lot throughout this project anyway, I actually start with blue in front and yellow on top, because blue in front, yellow on top, that's almost my default starting position when I solve the cube itself. And for a lot of things, if you've seen my solves on here, the transformer solve and the mutation solve, they all start from blue in front, yellow on top, and the entire level up, that all starts with blue in front, yellow on top. So that's my favorite side to start, and that's how I did the performance when I did it on Sam, and that performance was filmed yesterday. So and they obviously, if you're starting with blue in front, yellow on top, the forced color is white, and that's why I forced white in the performance there, and I also forced white when I was performing it out on the streets. So that's the difference. And I still, as I say, I still use the cube card stack, the 2-1-1-2 twice, but just from a different starting position. Finally, I'd just like to say I love performing this routine, and the reason is because it is a really, really nice showpiece, and I'm really trying to save it for at the end. And I said earlier on, I have done this on smaller groups, but I like to save this at the end, because even if people have seen you do other cube magic, and I tend to do cognitive illusion and parallel minds, those are my main two effects with just one cube, and of course cube cards as well. But so if I just want to do Rubik's Cube magic, those are the routines that I do. But even if they've seen me do those effects, this Colourtron kind of sums everything up that you can do with the Rubik's Cube. So even if they've seen those, it doesn't really matter. This is still a lovely showpiece, because some people won't have seen any Rubik's Cube magic, and others will have seen the other routines. So this will still seem amazing to them, because you're able to do so much with just this one cube. And what's nice is you could, at the end of the night, because this is your finishing routine, you could just give away the cube. And thinking on from that, of course, you could have the cube branded. So you could re-sticker the white side, and you could either have the couple's faces on here, or it could be a company brand if you were doing trade shows or that sort of corporate do. And so that is a lovely ending piece where you can give away the Rubik's Cube, and you can buy cheap speed cubes just for that effect. And so that would be my suggestion. The other thing is, I just want to say I don't have much of a presentation for this, whereas I know Kev spends a lot of time trying to give Rubik's Cube routines a bit more of a presentation, and I really admire that, because I see so many people do Rubik's Cubes and they're just going, oh look, and it solves, and and the only thing they ever mention is the 43 quintillion lines, and how impossible it is to do. Which, as I say, Kev really tries to give the cube effects a bit more meaning, but I think for this particular effect, you just want to get on with it. They've seen you do other effects, so this one, because you've got that process at the beginning as well, because when you're giving out the prediction, you're having to get people to think of colours or enforce the colour. You've got that process at the beginning, so you just want to get that out of the way as quickly as possible and get on with the routine, because there's a lot of magic happening anyway. So I don't think there's much of a need for a really in-depth, deep presentation for this one. So that's just something to think about. But I really hope you like this, because I think I've constructed it to just try and make it the perfect Rubik's Cube routine, where you've got the thought of colour, the mind-read colour, the matching effect, and then finally that instant solve. So that is Colourtron. Here on location, filming a secret project with none other than my dearest friend Mark Spellman. Mark, say hello.
Hello everybody.
And Mark's kindly offered to help me film this effect. Now Mark, last night we were talking about art.
We were.
And we were saying that when is art finished? Like, for instance, when does a painter know when that last brushstroke completes his masterpiece?
Nicely put.
Well, I've been working on that one all night. And in fact, in this bag, I have my own masterpiece. And as you can see, it's not finished.
Clearly, it needs work.
It does need work. And in fact, can you hold on to that?
Of course it can.
So I'm going to get you to help me possibly finish this. And I'm going to start mixing it about, and just say stop whenever you like.
Anytime.
Anytime you like. And in fact, I'm not even going to look.
Okay. Stop.
Stop?
Yeah.
It's not finished. It's not
That's
finished.
an understatement.
Yeah, it's not finished. Now, I know our interpretation of when finished is might be different.
Okay.
So, name a number between 1 and 10.
I'll go with 2.
Two?
No, 8. 8.
Yeah, I was just going to say go higher. That's good. Again, I'm not even going to look. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I can even go further from here if you like me to.
No, that's it.
No?
8. No, 8. 8.
Oh, hang on. That's it.
Okay, I'll take your word for that.
This is it. This is finished. This is finished. And to prove it, do you remember I gave you that bag earlier on? This bag contains another object. In fact, it's a mini cube, and where was it? I saw. Here we are. Look, these two sides match.
That's clever.
That's quite clever, isn't it? But
Yeah, that's
what if
clever.
2 sides matched?
Yeah, that's even better.
3 sides?
Yeah, okay.
4
I can
sides?
see where this is gonna
5
go.
sides? And all 6 sides match?
That is really, really clever. That's clever.
That's really, really impossible. In fact, hold on to that. Now, I said to you, we might have different interpretations of when finished is.
Yeah.
When were you expecting this cube to be finished?
Probably because of my magic background, I was assuming you were going to finish the Rubik's Cube, solve the cube. all
Exactly. Well,
sides, yeah.
that's exactly what most people would say. So, not to disappoint, I think, let me try this. Can you see these 3 pieces here?
The blue.
The blue
one?
pieces.
Yeah,
Now,
got it.
watch them change into a square.
Okay.
And the rest of the cube is still very mixed, yeah?
Yeah.
So watch the square, now watch a line.
Okay.
So you've got a square, a line, now watch this side, because now we've got a line and a square.
Okay, that looked good.
And in fact, you'll see patterns appearing all over this cube. Almost as if the cube solves itself.
That last bit is pure eye candy. That was
Thank you
good.
very much.
That's really, really good. Mate.
And that is art.
That is art.
From watching the performance, most of you will have realised that all this effect actually is the mutation solve combined with the force mix. And if you haven't studied either of those, do that before carrying on. Otherwise, let me show you how versatile Parallel Minds can be and my thoughts on performing it. Parallel Mind is my impromptu walk around matching effect, and it's basically the routine that I've been trying to dream up since day one of doing magic with the Rubik's Cube, and I think it's got a lot of things going for it. For a start, the cube looks really nicely mixed from all sides. The mixing process, I think, looks really fair and gets lots of spectators involved. And finally, you have two different endings at your disposal. You can either have a slow motion solve or you can have an instant solve. So in a walk around situation, what I tend to do is right at the start of joining a group, after I've introduced myself and said hello, I tend to send somebody a text, and I like to send them the text message of one of the mixes, and I'll go into more about different mixes in a moment. But for the moment, you send them the text, and then I tend to start my act, but not with the Rubik's Cube. I tend to do a card trick, then maybe a coin trick or a rubber band trick or something like that, and then start with the Rubik's Cube. And then, because it's almost a nice ending to your act of you being with them, is to have that callback to something you gave them right at the beginning, which I always like. And so that you've got that prediction there that's been there all along. And so that's one way of approaching that. And of course, the other reason is good. It's really good if somebody, quite often this happens when you join a group, goes, oh, I've been looking for a magician, you'll have to give me your number. And they're the perfect person to send that text message to and say, oh yeah, in fact, can I just give you can I just send you a text message? Then you've got my number anyway. And so you send them that off. Or if you wanted to get a telephone number of somebody, then that would be another way of doing it. So that's basically the way I start it normally. And so, as I say, by the time they actually get to that, there's been a long time, so the impact is doubled, I think. The other way of doing it is, of course, like I did it in the performance, is by having the mini cube there. And that's really nice because you're not having to switch anything in or out. You've just got that one extra mini cube in the bag, so you can, like I did in the performance, give the bag out for somebody to hold, do your effect, and then they're holding the prediction. That's nice. The other way, of course, is by photo. And the way I would do it then, I used to have business cards with photos on the back, and those photos were of the different mixes that I use. So that is a few suggestions on how to start with that prediction. Of course, I think it's important that if you're doing this in a party or a room where lots of people know each other, it's important that not everyone has the same prediction, because I think if anyone starts to compare their predictions at the end and go, well, I've got the same one, then it starts to look a bit rubbish. So to just give you a few ideas here, this, of course, you do with your mutation solve, for instance, for the first person, you send them a picture of these three sides. The next person, you send them a picture of these three sides, for instance. And of course, then once you get to know your mutation solve well, or the mix very well, then you'll be able to start from a different starting point. So rather than start with blue in front and yellow on top, start with green in front and red on top, or something like that. So as long as you, again, this takes a bit of knowing your mixes, but alternatively, you could of course just use an entirely different mix. So you could use Kev G's cube card mix, for instance, and then have the shake solve at the end, or you could do the 2112, the gear solve, the Akira solve, and the list goes on. So whatever solve and mix that you want to use, that can be used in this situation. Once you've started with the Rubik's Cube effects, I think it's important to sort of do a couple of things before you do Parallel Minds. For instance, I tend to do cognitive illusion, which is a really great establishing effect, or if you do something like Decepticon, or you do any of the ones where you do things behind the back or routines from Allspark, which really establish you as someone that's really worth watching with the Rubik's Cube, then you do the matching effect, because I think that's your perfect ending to a routine, and it also has that callback to the prediction you made right at the beginning. And the other, because obviously the difference between giving out the cube and letting them mix it and you mixing it is the fact that you're always in danger of somebody saying, oh, can I mix the cube? And true, but I think it's your attitude as a performer at this point, and that's why I think it's important to establish yourself. And the way you need to think of this, because I think there are a lot of people that aren't very confident, especially when you're starting out with a routine. You're just worried about what people are going to say, and the more shy or the more reserved you are about this sort of thing, I think the more people tend to take advantage of you. Like they will say, oh no, let me shuffle those cards, no, let me mix that Rubik's Cube. If you establish yourself as the sort of performer that goes, no, this is the way it's going to happen, and you're going to watch it, then you can get away with anything anyway. And I think I used to be quite shy myself, but now I'm a lot more confident. And the more confident you are, the more people just go, great, he's going to entertain me no matter what. I don't need to question what he's doing. It's just entertaining. So I think that at this point, you as I say, you have to go with the attitude with this, that I'm going to be the puppet master, but you're going to tell me how to move the puppets. Like, oh, I'm the musician, you're going to tell me what notes or what songs to play. So this is the sort of attitude you've got to have with this particular effect. And the way I do build the mixing process is by the first person I'll say, oh, just say stop whenever you like, and they say stop. Then you turn to the next person and go, oh, and the same for you, just say stop whenever you like, and this time I'm not even going to look at the cube. And so you build that way. Then by the third person you could do it behind your back. And again, if you know, the more you know your force mix, I'm really quite at ease with it now, so I can do it behind my back, it's no problem. And then when you do the force mix by numbers, I think it's really, really important that you're not looking at the cube at this point. So and you almost go into the numbers, ideally, as soon as they've said it. You go 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And you look away at this point, and you act as nonchalant as possible, as if you don't care. Then when you go back, you go, oh my God, that's it. That's what that's the ending that I've predicted. I think that way it's really important to be as nonchalant and as casual about this as possible, but at the same time firm, so that they can't take that thing away from you and go, well, I can't mix it. And I say, well, no, you can mix it, but I'm going to mix it, but you just tell me how you want this mixed. And so that is the way to handle the actual mixing process. And I hope I've given you a few tips to get you thinking. What happens if you mess up? So what happens if you're doing your force mix and you look down and you go, damn it. Okay, I've messed up. Or what happens if a spectator absolutely insists on mixing the cube themselves? In that instance, I change the effect. I can still go back to parallel minds later on, but for the moment, I change the effect and give the cube out to be mixed. Let the spectator mix it to their heart's content. Once they've mixed it, I will do Mark Elsden's Rubik Remembered. That is my out for absolutely everything. If you haven't watched the DVD, go and get it. It's just, as long as you can solve the Rubik's Cube, you will be able to do it blindfolded. So, and I think that's a really, really strong effect. Alternatively, you can do what Kev does, which is to simply solve the cube in front of them. And I've watched him do it and he makes it entertaining. So it's just what suits your style. I prefer the drama of doing it with a blindfold, but as I say, it's just as easy to do it if you can solve a cube in under a minute. I think that still looks impressive to most people. So those are your outs. Of course, once you've got back to your solved state, you can then go back into parallel minds, of course, Or if you find that there's not enough time and somebody says, well, what was this prediction for? If they've got the photo or if they've got the text, then what Mark Spellman told me to do, he just, if they say, oh, what was this prediction for? He just takes it off them, says, thank you very much. That was just to check you were watching, and then just walks off. So, and it's just this slightly moment of weirdness. Or if you sent them a text, you say, oh, sorry, I didn't get enough time to do that. I might be able to do that with you later on, but for the moment, you have my number if you ever need a magician. So you can just use that to your advantage. So those are your outs. Find you've mixed the cube, you've matched the cube up with the little cube, with a photo, or whatever your prediction was, and now you end with the matching effect. And the good thing about the mutation solve mix is that you can either have a slow motion solve or you can have the instant solve. So you can use the transformer solve. And this is the other thing is, whilst you're mixing, this cube looks totally mixed. There's no blocks of colors, like there's no squares of blue or lines of green or anything like that whilst you're actually mixing the cube, because, or if there are, they're only briefly and then they're unmixed back to the solved state. So and the solved state, or not the solved state, I suppose your mixed state rather, is completely, looks totally mixed on all sides. And that's why I created this mix, is because I don't like to have, as I mentioned in the mutation solve, I wanted this cube to look as mixed as possible so that people haven't got any reference points where they say, oh, well, you've always got that blue square or you've always got that white line or something like that. So that's why I love this mix. But you have got the option at the end to then go into the mutation solve, which is that lovely slow motion solve, or the transformer solve, which I teach on volume 2. And the difference being is the one move. So if you've watched the mutation solve, you know what the mix is. And if I was then wanted to end with a transformer solve, I would go, I would just get to that square, that just because I need to undo one part. And I go, just think, if you'd done one move more, the outcome would have been totally different. And now I'm ready to just go straight into the transformer solve right at the end. The other thing, in loud environments, I tend to do an instant solve because it's quick and you've got people's attention. In slightly quieter environments, I tend to do the mutation solve because you've got a bit more time. I'll also vary the mix, of course, or what I'm matching up against possibly. So if I've sent one person a photo and I realise there are people that have seen it, I'll normally do it with a cube if I want to do the same mix again. So you've got lots of different options. So I hope that's given you a nice oversight on doing a matching effect with just one cube. But as I say, this is one of my favorite routines on this entire project, and it's the routine that I've wanted ever since I started impromptu cube magic. And for me, it ticks all the boxes, and I hope it does for you.